I'm going to talk about the poetry of Petrarch a little bit, and drink my hot lemon and honey, or maybe I won't. It's still pretty hot. And James is having a power bowl, and I think he'll talk about the Bible after. So, as you can see, I have a bookmark in here, so I'm only quarter, or maybe a third of the way done through this book. And so far, my favorite part was actually the introduction, where the author was talking about, Petrarch, the life of Petrarch, and some things like that. So he lived from 1304 to 1374, and stands out as a powerful and original lyric poet. That's what I suppose David Young says, unless the introduction was written. Yeah, introduction by him too. So, anyway, I guess I had looked it up recently, and I had thought that the Petrarchan sonnet form was devised by Petrarch. One would think that, right? But apparently it was actually somebody else. I can't remember who. You can look it up online. That's how I found it. So it was somebody that came along before him, and then he just made it famous, I guess, or whatever. So
this sort of thing has happened in science, for example. Someone will come up with something. Someone will come along who became more famous and appropriate the discovery of something.
Well, he wrote so many. I mean, not all of the. I should point out that not all of these. This is the. What is it called? The
Canzoniere.
Exactly. 1 to 366. So there's a lot of them, and this is about Laura. They're all about Laura, because he's infatuated with Laura, but he can't have her. She's not for him.
Belongs to someone else.
Yes. Yes. So anyway, a lot of his poems, they're sad. And at this point, at first he was hopeful, at first he's thinking, oh yeah, I'm so in love with Laura. And then, I should point that out. Another thing that I love is the cover of this. That's a laurel tree, laurel leaves on the cover. And that makes sense because he often refers to, he refers to a laurel tree in his poems, but really he's referring to her, So, anyway.
Does he ever compare her to Daphne? I think Daphne is Greek for laurel.
Oh, I don't think so here. But anyway, I haven't come across that.
Okay, there we go. But anyway, he's making a pun, kind of like on the meaning of her name, which is Laurel or Laurel.
Yeah.
Right?
But I should point out that David Young has not translated the poetry exactly. He's translated poetry into prose. So this is very easy to read.
Yeah.
You're not having to deal with any, I don't know if David Young knew Italian and he fixed some of the inversion or something like that. I can't know. I don't know Italian. So I can't actually know if Petrarch was actually a good stylist or anything like that by reading this. But what I can say is, oh my gosh, I love reading this. This is really, I think it's beautiful. I mean, not all. Some, there's, I'll read to you a few. Oh, I should also point out that when the translator writes out the sonnets, he writes it 4 lines, break, 4 lines, break, 3 lines, break, 3 lines, break. That's how he writes it out. But I don't know if it would have originally been that way either. So.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say. I think it's the general practice nowadays to do it that way with a sonnet.
Well, that's what he did anyway.
Exactly.
But I don't know if Petrarch did. So,
yeah, it's hard to say.
reading this, I'm I have unanswered questions, but I don't know if I'm going to bother to try to answer them. James might, because he might actually read the Italian, but I don't. I tried to, I thought, I'm going to try to learn Italian once, and very quickly I realized I will never learn Italian.
It's tough
And
to
so
learn any other
I
language.
stopped trying, and I'm never going to try again, and I can say that with absolute certainty. Italian is not a language I will ever learn. So I will never be able to read Petrarch in the original Italian. So this is great for me. So one
In some
thing,
ways, this is better because you're going to actually get more out of it, I think, than if
well,
you
I
try
can
to
just
read
fly
it.
through this, really.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't take me any
Yeah.
time.
Well,
It's,
the other thing is you're going to miss stuff no matter how good. Well, I'm not going to say no matter how good. But if you just take a few university courses in Italian or French or whatever, and then try to read poetry, you're not even going to know all the meanings of all the words.
oh, you're right. Yes. And that's one thing that James really likes to play around with is multiple meanings of one word sound. So, or even one word the way it's written, not just the sound, but the, anyway, he likes to play around with that. And I guess some people do. I guess you were saying that the French like playing around with a word that is said the same way but spelled differently and means something different.
Well, they allow that kind of rhyme. They don't just allow it; they consider it a strength.
Yes, I know. You've told me that, and I don't like it. I don't like it when I do that. And but I think, well, maybe I should let myself, because some people think that it's a strength to do that. So
Sometimes it's if you've got a really, really demanding rhyme scheme, it's almost like necessary.
Yeah,
But
I
you can
suppose.
also use it to effect, like I'm building up to something, blah, 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 and then all of a sudden it's kind of a letdown or something like that.
yeah.
You can do all sorts of stuff with it, and the important thing is not so much following other people's rules, but setting your own, and trying not to allow yourself to break rules just to fit in a pattern or something like that. So in other words, here's an example. Don't go. I don't advise it. You can do whatever you like, but like it doesn't look good if you're going along rhyming. Everything's perfect rhyme, and then you've got this wonderful ending, and it doesn't quite rhyme. Or it might just have consonants.
Yeah, that's
You might have air, fair, so on and so forth, and then you go here, right at the end. My poem ends here, and you kind of let me down. You got tired. We've noticed it in poets, right?
Yeah.
They get tired, and
So anyway, one thing that I noticed by the time I got to number 59 in this book, which I should point out, they're numbered. They don't have titles. They have numbers. So whatever. But what would you call them anyway? They're all about the same subject, right? So you're going to have different. No, whatever. The number's great. So. But what I noticed at this point, this one is number 59. It says another belletta, which I don't know what that means, but
it's like ballad, right?
Sure.
But it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as ballad.
Okay.
One language to another.
All right then. So anyway, what I noticed by the time I got to number 59 is that I actually prefer the ones that aren't sonnets more. I don't know why. I like his longer stuff more. So this one, I'll read it to you. And this is a translation again by David Young. Although another's fault removes from me what drew me first to love, it doesn't take away my firm desire. Among the golden tresses hid the noose by which love caught and bound me, and from those lovely eyes came freezing ice that passed into my heart, and with the power of such splendor that just the memory of it empties my heart of all but that desire. The lovely sight of that blonde hair is gone, alas, quite taken from me. The gaze of those two chaste and lovely lights has fled and left me saddened. But since by dying well I gain some honor, neither my suffering nor my death can make me wish that I were free again. And I just think that's so beautiful. And I don't know how you feel about that one, James.
Well, it's, the guy's got it all set out. I think it might be more David Young than Petrarch, but we've got to read the original. It's shocking to read Latin poetry from like 2,000 years ago, and you're going, wow, that's better than stuff that flunkies are writing today.
Yeah. And this is just prose. I mean, he's just written it out into prose. He hasn't worried about the rhymes or the rhythm or anything like that when he's translating.
It looks as though there's no concern about rhythm.
No, but
it looks as though
beautiful.
With the translations into the sonnets, he's kind of said, "Oh
no, somebody's in heat." Oh well. But anyway, you may notice at that point, I think something happened there that he realized it's not going to happen between Laura, right? So it might be that's when she got married or something like that, or even just started dating somebody else. I don't know. But then after that, it's his number 60, the noble tree I've loved so many years. Times when its lovely branches gave me shelter, helped my weak wit to flower in its shade, and added that way to my store of troubles. For when I'd come to feel a total trust, it turned its very wood from sweet to bitter. My thoughts began to gather round one subject, and now can only prate of their misfortunes. What might some lover say who'd gotten hope from reading youthful rhymes of mine, and then lost everything he had because of her? Then let no poet gather from it, nor Jove give it favor. Let the sun's anger beat down and shrivel all of its green leaves. So at this point he's upset. And
So I want to point out that it looked like that palata, or maybe a ballad is in that translation. It could be a false print. It looked as though it might have been free verse, but those sonnets they're written in blank verse, from what I can tell. The translation, and that's challenging. It's really challenging just to put anything into.
Well, I'm really liking David Young's translations. Like I said, I am just eating this up.
The stuff follows the order.
I'm now
that's
at
what
70.
I recommend to most people who are doing translation into English. Don't bother with the rhyme. We've got so few rhymes in English by comparison with languages like Italian or especially French, Spanish too. You're going to run into trouble, and better to get the sense across and some sort of rhythm, something like that. It seemed like that one sonnet seemed to be written in blank verse. And I have to actually.
Well, I haven't really looked into it. I've just been reading.
You've just been reading, and that's the important thing. You know? It's kind of you're kind of just like you weren't missing the beat or anything like that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I noticed that there wasn't rhythm in the one that I liked. So, or you know what I mean.
The one that you read?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
I don't know. I don't think they're. So I'm not sure if they're. Sometimes maybe he does have it in blank verse, but I'm not sure. This one is a sonnet.
My good luck.
And that's not blank verse.
Well, let's just see. He might not have the greatest rhythm. My good luck is both late and very sluggish. My good luck is both late and very sluggish. But
good is not accented there.
Isn't. My hope's uncertain. Passion swells and rises. So leaving's painful, waiting's painful too. Okay. And then they vanish swift as running tigers. So the next three are in iambic pentameter, but he just doesn't understand verse well enough to know it's good luck, my good luck. So that's okay.
A lot of the time it takes a while for people to hear spondies as not having the same strength of accent. And they don't. There's really no such thing as a spondee. One is more accented than the other in English. So
The only way you could have it is maybe having a strong accent, period, another strong accent, but it's not the same thing. So when they're next to each other, it's like one eclipses the other. One will outshine, maybe is a better way to put it, the other. So it's generally we say good luck, good luck. And if you say good luck, what you'd be looking for is good luck as opposed to bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
And then the good would be emphasized over the luck, even though we'd say they're both accented. In that case, the first one's accented.
But in any case, David Young has done an awesome translation.
Oh, they seem
And
quite good, yeah.
I think you'll like it when you sit down to read this too.
Yeah, it comes highly recommended
Yeah.
from Pauline.
And I haven't even read the whole thing yet, but I mean, I've read enough to know I can give it my stamp of approval.
Well, when you go through
lovely.
it and find out he got tired towards the end, you'll report that too.
Well,
if it doesn't happen, if it happens.
Excuse me. So
sometimes people get tired, you know.
Oh, I was going to mention something more about translations of poetry from other languages into English using just prose or blank verse, sure, but especially when it's just prose. I think that may have been one thing that really killed poetry in the 20th century. Well, before then, actually. But, I mean, the 20th century was just a wasteland for poetry. It was garbage. And it still is. And I think that's why, is because people were looking at these translations and they were thinking, oh, well, this is poetry that I'm reading right now. Well, it's not. If it's just a prose translation, you're reading prose. You're not reading the poetry. And that has been lost in translation. And honestly, I can't imagine it wouldn't ever be lost in translation.
Something's always going to get lost.
Something will be,
it's
right?
Like someone said, poetry gets lost in the translation. What you want to do if you're doing a poetic translation, well, poetic's about a poetry translation in poetry, you want to inject some of your own poetry in. And it often involves putting, let's say, iambic pentameter where it might be syllabic in the original. That's an obvious kind of example. You're doing it from Japanese or from French. I gather from Spanish as well. You put some stuff in. That's why I don't recommend people who are not expert versifiers, who can't handle English prosody. I don't recommend them doing translations into English because they don't have the craft. They don't have the art. They can't do it. So do a prose thing. That'll be perfectly fine. The best thing is if you're going to do a poetic translation, poetry translation, is to actually include, like, have three versions: the original, your translation, poetic translation, poetry translation, and then have prose translation. The best I've ever run is a translation of Pushkin. I think it has those three, and it might even have a word-by-word translation to help people learn the language. Although learning a language from poetry isn't recommended to you, because or even literary prose, because you're going to be just overwhelmed with a slew of obscure words. Yeah, so if you read Marcel Proust, French doesn't have a slew of obscure words, not like English does. And you're going to have some troubles unless you have a pretty good background in French. I'm getting there. I'm trying to read Proust with the original and then English translation back. The sentences are so long that it's a problem going, which word goes with which? If you got short sentences, then you go, okay, that kind of puts it to where You know, like that is in this sentence. There's only 10 words in this sentence. Well, it's 1 out of 10 here over there.
Look.
Oh, is that a? Oh, that's a finch. Is it?
Oh, well, it's
I see yellow.
yellowish.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
it's
thank you,
probably
little
a
birdie.
yellow warbler, maybe?
Okay. Well,
Or
it
some sort
warbles
of
pretty nicely.
warble.
Very nice.
Anyway, it's nice to see a
Yeah.
little bit of color in the
Yeah.
garden.
The brown is almost greenish on it. What would you characterize that as? It's kind of
We should
grayish.
look it up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of yellow on the
There's a
tail.
lot of yellow.
Yeah.
Depends on how he holds his tail.
Yeah.
And how he holds his wings and things like that. He has a nice little.
He's trying to give me enough information so I can look him up and say,
Yeah.
oh, that was a
Yeah.
such and such.
Yeah. I think he's
That's
waiting
very
to the trough there.
Oh, he
Windows
probably
there.
is, yeah, because I have seed there.
He might be a little afraid of us.
So, did you want to read or talk? Oh, that's something different
This
today.
one's different. So I was talking about
Not the
new
Bible today. I
month's
thought you were gonna-
resolution,
Yeah.
right? So I've just been, but it's a new month. I think starting tomorrow, right?
Yes, it
Friday,
is.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is going to be my next one. Hopefully I can finish it up in a month. And yeah, I'm using a sentence adverb when I say hopefully. Anyone who's got a problem with it shouldn't be listening to it. They're going to have all sorts of problems. In linguistic terms, okay. I think it's hoppenlike in Dutch, hoffentlich in German. It's I suspect it was people saying hopefully in English goes back to before English was a separate language from German. So wake up and smell the coffee.
All right.
It's perfectly fine to use sentence adverbs that modify the whole sentence,
So,
not the verb.
you have about 7 or 8.
Oh, there's 7 or 8 minutes, so we'll see what shakes down. So, yeah. I'm hungry too, so get ready. Spoiler alert. Going to be chowing down here while I'm talking. And I don't care if that conforms to Miss Manners' rules of etiquette. I'm going to be chowing down. I'm hungry. I actually, we ran out of food at my place last night and I walked. I'm going to say 5 miles. Bit of a food desert in my area. 5 miles, 2.5 each way. Took me over an hour. I think to get down there it took me an hour and 12 minutes to get back. An hour and 21 minutes. Good exercise. It wasn't bad weather or anything like that. A little windy. Not bad. So I've forgotten what I finished up 1 or 2 days after my birthday, which is the 7th of May 1954. I was ecstatic to finish it up, and that was kind of like my new month's resolution for April. And then I finished up in the space, I believe, of in the space of 16 days, the Bible and Afrikaans. I started a little bit of it already, but the vast, probably well over 1,000 pages. I think it's about 1,174 pages, including front and back pages. So some of those pages were, but it'd be over 1,160 pages. So I finished that in less than a month, and now starting up. We'll see how long it takes. Believe me, there's passages in the Old Testament in particular that are boring, absolutely boring. Book of Numbers, what does that mean? It's kind of, I think, means census. So numberings of peoples and stuff like that. Wow, imagine reading a census. Yeah, you don't have to imagine too much to realize how boring it is. And then, oh man, Deuteronomy, that's the second law. The laws get pretty obscure there. There's other stuff in, it's not exclusively that. And the same thing with Numbers, it's not exclusively census. And, well, Exodus is pretty exciting, although there's stuff in it. I think there's their description of the tabernacle there. Yeah, pretty boring. Oh, the tabernacle's got to be this wide, this high. And the description of this sacrifices is not that gruesome, but it's fairly gruesome. Going into how the sacrifices are chopped up and all that sort of stuff. Of course, the priests get, I don't know if it's the lion's share of the sacrifice. They must have been susceptible to gout or something like that, because they were getting a lot of meat, from what I can tell, to eat. Anyway, les scènes écriture, excuse my mispronunciation, but I'm tired, and I never took a lot of French. Formally, I think I took 3 years elementary school and junior high, 3 years high school, and then 1 semester university French. I'm not terribly concerned about being able to discute in French, discuss stuff in French or whatever, or to hear people talk it, or least of all to write it. But I am interested in being able to read as much as possible. Given that I've got other languages, I'm actually more interested in French. Maybe not so much the literature. French literature is, from what I can tell, deserves its high repute, and I want to read as much as possible of Balzac and Zola. I want to find out why that crazy philosopher / economist they had on the CBC was saying that once you read those 2 guys, along with Jane Austen and Charles Dickens, you can understand capitalists. And the most recent of them, 1902, capitalism, the way I define it, and I equate it with industrialism. Most people wouldn't, but there you go. So capitalism isn't mercantilism. It isn't merchants way back when, the ancient Assyrian merchants. I think they're dated to around 1800 BC, 1700 BC. That's off by a little bit, but a long time ago. Those weren't capitalists, and they had something like bankers, or banking capabilities and stuff like that. That's not capitalist. A capitalist has to have plant and machinery, or else what's the point? No, they've been around forever. They've been around, I guess maybe those kind of capitalists, merchants, traders, bankers, they've been around. They're maybe the second oldest profession. So you don't really point anything out. Oh, they've been around forever, stuff like that. But I think a lot of folks out there that claim to hang up in the left wing, but they have right-wing solutions to everything, including censorship, and they're during the Cold War they were cheering for people who practiced genocide and ethnic cleansing, and I'm talking about Stalin, Mao, and Ho Chi Minh, and so on and so forth. And they were pretty actively cheering. It wasn't just Jane Fonda, very misguided Jane Fonda. How much time to?
No, 60 seconds, 30 seconds?
Okay.
30 seconds.
So get ready. You're going to get more of the Bible, especially the Old Testament, launched in your face. Like that. There it is. So get ready. It's going to be unpleasant.